you got to go to college. At least that's what my parents told me about 30 years ago. Now, as a modern day dad, I'm struggling with how to interact with my kid and tell them what to do when they graduate high school. We're going to talk about that today. Hey, welcome back to The Art of Fatherhood. I'm Brian LaFauci.
And I'm Patrick Marino.
And today we are delving into the difficult, which I feel very difficult, discussion and decision process of to college or not to college. That is the question. I just wish we could resurrect Jim Belushi and be like, to college or not to college, and get him to give us the answer.
I feel like he never said that.
I know. So
we're going to talk about to college or not to college. Is that going to be the basic framework of this? Like, I think, should you encourage your kids to go to college?
Well, in the process too. I mean, we're in the process now, and I think the balancing the process of exposure without pressure is interesting. Yeah. Right. So yeah, I think all the dynamics that fathers today are facing in this decision process, which is when it was 30 years ago. And the message was, everyone, you just got to go to college. That's how you get. Well, at least that was an easy message to digest, right? Now, not everyone went, but the message was easy. Nowadays, the messaging that I hear as a dad, that you hear as a dad, that my kids hear is, college is great opportunity. College is a waste of money. You're going to be in debt. Look at the trades. They're the way you should go. Look at all the new STEM education programs. That's the way you should go. Like, it is a myriad of decisions. And it was tough enough when I was a kid to decide, all right, I want to go to college, and where do I want to go? Never mind with the overwhelming thought process now about, should I even do that? And add that into the equation, into kids who are trying to make decisions. Our role as dads has never been more important. And just helping, not to make the decision, let me clarify. Our role is not to make the decision. Our role is to give our kids tools to just unclutter and evaluate.
I agree. I think that the
podcast over. You agree? I agree.
That was a great discussion. Thank you, Brian. Thank you for letting me know what our role is, and have a good night. I think that this is probably if at no other time, and like you said, probably the past 30 years or so, is the answer to that question, it depends. I think that's the answer. I think but I don't think that was always the answer. I think that probably, maybe not 30 years ago, but between like 10 and 30 years ago, the answer was probably go to college, because financially it worked out better for you almost every time. Like, that was the statistic. The statistic was that, and the statistic I think still is this, on average, which is if you get a 4-year degree, you are better off in the long term financially than if you don't, on average. But I think that the tide is turning, and I think that equation drastically changes based on a million factors. And I think there are two factors that I am thinking about with my current 18-year-old, who I think has just made a decision, ex-stepson, and then my 9-year-old, who is a ways away, who I just think about for him. And the two factors to me are, number one is you should make the decision based on what you want to do in life, right? So in other words, if you want to be a doctor, you have to go to college. There's no two ways about it. And if you become like an emergency room surgeon, you're going to make enough money to pay off your college experience. But the second way of looking at it is, are the trades, based on the things that I'm worried about as a 46-year-old person, are the trades a better option for the future of work? Like, is AI gonna, like, for example, like they're already saying that certain of these AI models can do a better job at diagnosing cancer than a real doctor, right? So then, are we going to need as many doctors? Lawyers, like lawyers who do primary paperwork, who are primarily like going over contracts and stuff like that. Like those that job is not going to exist anymore. So the question is, are you better off doing something that a robot can't do right now, which is like plumbing, which we don't have enough plumbers. And actually there was a South Park special recently where it was like all the people in the future who are like loaded are like plumbers and electricians. Like they are like buying and selling people. And then like everybody else is like scrounging around for who went to school because they can't.
South Park is great at taking the current like climate and making it fucking hilarious.
There are things that the robots are struggling with, like folding towels, or like the other thing that robots are doing, which is not as related to the college discussion, is the self-driving thing is becoming a reality now. Like it was kind of like, oh, the self-driving thing isn't working out, but now if you live in certain communities, you can take a driverless taxi, and you know that's like you can actually do with this now. You can't do it where we live. Like if you're in California or near the tech areas, you can take a driverless taxi. Yeah.
The rule, the general thought is that's going to become reality.
The number one employment for men in the United States is driving somehow. It's the number one job for men.
It's a great fact.
And that's going to be, that could potentially go away. Mm-hmm. So like going back to the college discussions, like to me, that's the two things is like, will the degree get paid off for with the income? So that's number one. And then number two is are you better off doing something that's hands-on because of the future of work?
Yeah.
To me, that those are two things that I don't know the answers to, but those are the things I think about.
Well, the other piece to add into that, I believe that the college experience is a social construct beyond just a goal-driven activity.
Right.
So yes, you go to learn a skill and then work in it. But the other thing you go for, I believe our society believes this, is you go to grow into an adult. Mm-hmm. Okay? So you use this living away from mom and dad, all these like communes already built. Mm-hmm. So it's a commune of people all trying to figure themselves out in a social construct as well. Yeah. Whether it's the best one, I don't know.
Well, but you particularly, me for sure, but I think you even more so based on your background and the environments that you've been in as a person growing up, especially as a veteran, knowing people who are veterans who probably didn't go to college, mm-hmm. right? Probably a lot, mm-hmm. right? Whereas I know some family members, not my family, but other family who've not gone to college. Mm-hmm. And I would question the idea that 4 years of social experimentation is a real thing. Like you said, you use the word construct. And that was kind of the thing. It was like we send our kids away, they go away for 4 years to become an adult. I'm not sure that's real.
I don't know either. Yeah. I'm just saying it is a construct that exists.
But I mean, thinking about the people that you know, you have to know a bunch of people who just went to the armed forces or whatever it is, which is maybe the wrong way of looking at it, because that would be the idea of going someplace to become an adult.
Average military contracts, 4 to 6 years. Average time people spend getting their undergrad degree, 4 to 6 years.
Maybe that's the wrong way of looking at it. But I know some people who went into the trades who are just these amazing people. They've never had any debt. They have these amazing retirement packages, mm-hmm. and they never needed to have that 4 years where they partied and lived away from home.
Right. You wonder, is it real? Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I completely agree with you.
Whereas the military example is kind of a bad one because you are kind of doing that.
No, but it's the same thing. You really are. If you go as an 18-year-old, if you go directly into the, active duty armed service of any branch, you're going to go to your basic training, do that. That's, an experience in itself that's transformative. But then they're going to put you in a dorm somewhere with a bunch of other young people like you doing the same thing.
The reason why I said it was a bad example is it does fit along the lines of you need to have this experience where you live away from home and transition to adulthood. Whereas these people I know who just went straight in the trades who are super successful, mm-hmm. they didn't do that.
No.
Right? They just kind of went straight into working as an apprentice.
Yep.
Working manual labor jobs, and now they're, doing super well.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I'm not saying there's a right
And
or wrong,
right, do they have?
But does that say, okay, you really don't need that experience where you go away and become an adult?
Right. Are they less of an adult? Are they, you like you said, are they less of an adult from not having done that? I don't think so at all. Yeah. Which makes this conversation, like I said, even more of a difficult one. And as we,
so your child that's going through this process right now is how old?
17,
and is going to be a senior.
Yes.
And so what's the calculus? Is there even a thought of not going to college?
Yes.
Okay.
But not really from her, from me making it clear that
it's an option.
That, I mean, there's so the terms that I use with my kids, and I use with the old kids too. It's like, it doesn't matter what you're doing as long as what you're doing is a challenge and you're moving forward.
Right.
Where I get into the space where I'm like, all right, what you're doing right now is kind of a problem to me, is I hate to see stagnation. Mm. I don't, when I see that, I'm like, that's when I will call out someone, especially my kids. Like, what are you doing to move forward right now? If you're doing the same old thing, right, and that you've been doing for the last 5 years, and then nothing that you are doing is taking an active step to learn, grow, or take on a more challenging role, that's a problem to me.
Right.
So that's the message I give my kids. Now, there was a time, the other piece of this is, you made a great point. You got to go to, you gave the low-hanging fruit of the doctor, right? So if our listeners have a kid that wants to be a doctor, well, that's easy. We know the route. But how many kids are looking at a $60,000 a year school where they're going to spend the first couple of years figuring out what they want to do?
I mean, if we can find a $60,000 a year school, jump on it.
They're out there.
Jump on it.
But my point is that, like, there's a lot of kids that are still figuring it out at the rate of to me, that's where the problem lies right now. Now, did I do that? Yes.
Right.
I started my traditional educational journey was very scattered, and I was very fortunate in that, like, my original undergraduate, I started in business. As I was in the program, I was like, I don't know if I like this. I transitioned into like a psych pre-med program. I liked it. I ended up going into school psychology, went back, did some MBA classes a little bit here and there. All my post-grad stuff was paid for by the military. Great. So I got that for free. But if you think about it, I'm not a school psychologist anymore, right? That role has kind of a cap on what it pays. I still took on a decent amount. Even back then, we're going back now, almost 30 years. Still took on a decent amount of debt to go that route. And I was very exploratory on that journey. Took 5 years to get through my bachelor's degree, right? Transferred schools, so I had to grab an extra year. So when I look at that, if I could have a crystal ball, if my daughter was going to take that same trajectory, which we don't really know, and come out on the other end, not in finance, but in another job that doesn't have the earning potential, whatever, we could think of a million of them, right? But maybe they love it, right? They love it. So that's great, because that's, to me, that's important. The balance of what you can earn and really liking what you do is super important. But if they go through that journey and end there, now you're like, all right, I was okay with you absorbing, $80, $90, $100,000 in student debt, whatever that number is, because I thought you were going to come out with a finance degree and be pretty easy to make six figures right out the gate, maybe even pay that off in like 2 years, living at home and then go out, whatever. But now you got this, right? So,
well, what are the chances of your daughter, and I'm just going to use you because you're here, and that's why I brought it up. But like, what are the chances of her being on a linear journey?
I don't think anyone's on a linear journey.
I was going to say, I'd say the chances are probably pretty small.
Right. So so that is, I guess, where I'm getting at with this point is that even that doctor not all of them who start end up going that route. So, they spend X amount of dollars a year at Columbia because they got a great medical program they eventually want to go into. And then they're like, I don't really want to do this. And they pivot off of it. I think as a society, because of the predicament we're in, which if we look at the current landscape, there's a couple things going on. Thing number one is education costs are through the roof.
Right.
We have to acknowledge that. Thing number two is there are these massive gaps where we used to, as a society, look at them as, well, that's where the people went who didn't go to school.
Or we used to do you'd be like, you worked hard doing a manual labor job that you didn't necessarily want to do for the future of your family, so that your kids didn't have to do that. Mm-hmm. That's why you did that. You worked really, really hard, worked my ass off. And when my kid gets to that point, they won't have to do this manual labor stuff.
Right.
So you went down kind of the future of work. I think there's a third one too. The third one is just the way that we raise adults is different, and adults look different at age 18 than they did even when we were kids. I mean, my friends were a bunch of degenerates, but every single one of them had there wasn't as much of the meandering, I think, as there is now. Well, there was a lot of, I have friends who were adults at 21. I mean, they were freaking adults. They had kids. I mean, and then if you look at another generation before that, now you're talking about most people being what we would probably consider a real adult, where they're either on their way to home ownership, have kids, or in their career, right? And now you're 21-year-old in 2024, or does not look like that.
A lot.
So that's I think a lot less of them. That's a third factor, right? Is we don't raise kids the same way. We kind of understand now that being 21, from probably a lot of our own experiences, is not really a great year to be an adult. You probably aren't really ready to be an adult.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You probably don't want to make huge decisions at that age. You're probably better off postponing some of those decisions until your frontal lobe is fully developed. You know what I mean? Where you're going to make less risks and you've had more experience. So that's a third factor.
And I think I agree with that. And I think the worst advice as a dad that you could give to your kids is, well, let's just do it that way because that's the way we did it. Right? Mm-hmm. But that's what is a little bit of what's happening and what's driving us to have this fear of missing out. If my kids don't go right to college, I mean, that was ingrained in me, and that's So I think the big advice that I would like to give, that I think is a helpful way to approach this, is blank slate this and build it from the ground up. No, don't worry about what the common practices were, because this new world we're in is new. It's very new. This new situation is a new situation, a new dynamic. So when you approach a new dynamic, what do? Well, you evaluate it for what it is, not the constructs that were there. And that is very hard. It's hard for me to do. It's hard for, I'm sure, you to do. It's hard for all the parents to do, is to say, okay, wipe slate clean. And one of those things, while you just brought up, it seems like 21-year-olds aren't adulting as quickly as maybe we.
I think that if you polled society today, and you asked them, is a 21-year-old an adult? Mm-hmm. I don't think you'd get many people saying a 21-year-old's an adult.
And what's going on in the kid's mind right now is that there is pressure, and my daughter has verbalized this. If I don't go to college, look at all those kids that are, and I'm behind. It's no. It does not work that way.
Right.
If you move yourself forward in any capacity, you are, in essence, moving yourself forward holistically. And there is benefits that you will gain. So what if you don't go to college right out of high school and you just sit around taking a job that has no meaning for you, that you're not really there to learn anything? And okay, I may agree that that might have been a little bit of a quote-unquote wasted year. But if you say, I'm not going to go to college and I really want to explore, learn, and grow and see if this field I think I have interest in is real, and you get yourself into that field in some menial capacity, right? Like the janitor that like you Matt Damon the thing, right? You do the equation on the board. So, but you give yourself an experience, and you take that opportunity to maybe, okay, what are my peers that are in college not doing right now? I'm not saving any money. I can, right? What are they not doing? They're not getting work experience. I am. So, and I'm learning like this thing. So if you take that approach to it and you do the thing of moving forward, that can be a phenomenal stepping stone for you going forward. And I think it's just getting the toughest part there, I believe, is getting our kids to, it's easy for us as adults to dump those preconceived notions because we are mature enough to do that. But to get a kid to understand that this is not a race to the first one with their bachelor's degree. Doesn't mean if that's the route they really want to go, they're wrong. As long as they understand what they're getting into, understand the financial implication of it or whatever. But it means that it's putting this understanding that this is not that thing, that bachelor's degree is a step, one of many steps. And the first one to get it doesn't win the race because there is no race, right? Like the first one to get it doesn't go out there and slay the world because they were the first one done with their degree, or it doesn't work that way.
And we also, you and I had a friend of the podcast here, Brendan Elliott, was in here, right? Who makes a decent chunk of change, right? And like he
and lives a good life and has a happy, has beyond just making the money, is very happy in the life he's created.
Yeah, I think the idea is just that what you have to do as a parent, maybe, I think you kind of went this way, but is give your kid a realistic idea of what the future could look like and the different ideas of what they could be. And you do the best you can because they're going to make mistakes and figure it out themselves no matter what you do. But I think the idea today is to sort of say, okay, well, look, and this is the way I've had this conversation with my little boy. He was like, oh, I want to make video games. So that's great. But he also has, like, right now, he's got like a taste for the better things. So if you want the better things, are you better off working for a company or finding an opportunity where there is less competition? And we talk about that all the time, right? In our business building, right? It's like, if we're going to create a business, you don't want to work in an area where, like, you don't want to put your cafe across the street from another cafe that does the same thing you do, right?
Right.
It's like, yeah, I really want to run a cafe. It's like my dream thing. Well, maybe you could get by doing that, and that would be great. Or are you better off doing something that's going to, exploring more opportunities where there's opportunities to make money, trying to look into the future, trying to figure out, okay, well, I'm going to compete in this space, or I'm going to compete. Like right now, all the kids want to be YouTubers.
Right.
All the little boys do anyway.
Right.
They all want to be YouTubers.
Oh, yeah.
But like
everyone wants to be an influencer.
But I mean, like all you got to do is open up the newspaper, the digital newspaper. Like influencers don't make as much money as they used to. YouTubers, there's a small fraction of people who are making a lot of money, and everybody else is just struggling to get by.
We're not all Mr. Beast.
Right. Well, it's like you need to go. You need to, like I tell my boy, like, you need to find the next YouTube. You don't want to compete in this space. This space is full. That doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means that if you want to be like ultra successful, like I think he wants to be right now, and that's another conversation. Like, do you need to have like a ton of money? You don't. But if you want that, then you don't. Then this is the wrong way to do it because this space is full. Are you going to have the same ideas that all these other people have and do it the same way that they do it?
Right.
No, you want to go and do something else. You want to find the next thing. I mean, like be entrepreneurial. And so like that's kind of the lessons I'm trying to give him right now is this idea of like, look, there's going to be these multiple paths. Go work for a company. That's one way of doing it. Go find your own opportunities. Find the next thing. That's how you kind of get to the big point. You know what I mean? Like I think the idea is to put it all out there and give them like a realistic sense. And then you work backwards. Now, do you have to go to college to achieve that? And like that's going to look different, I think, for everybody. And like if the decision is to go to college, then we talk about the affordability factor. You can go to community college for free in Massachusetts right now. I think that just went into So like, can you do 2 years for free? And
Yeah.
then now you're only
You do that in Rhode Island too if you stay working in the state or something like that.
right. Now you're only financing 2 years
Yeah.
of college. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's community college is one of those things that a lot of my friends did.
Oh, it's a great stepping
Like
stone.
that was like I had a ton of friends. They went to Massasoit, RICC. Like I knew a ton of people who did that. I feel like that kind of got lost in the past, like between when I was there. So that's like, 25 years ago to then like 5 years ago. There was a big community college gap where people didn't go to community college. But why did they go to community college? Two big reasons. One is they couldn't afford college. Back when college was more affordable, they couldn't afford it.
Yep.
And then number two, they didn't quite know what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
They knew they probably should go to college, but I can't figure out exactly what I want to do. So I'm going to go to community college for 2 years. That will help me in a cheaper area, closer to home. I don't have to freaking finance it. I can just go. I can work while I'm doing it. You know what I mean? Like, so like this thing used to exist, and it's coming back.
Oh, it's definitely coming back. And
But
it's coming back
didn't
with
exist
some
for
support.
like 15 years. For like 15 years, it was like, oh, you had to go to Florida State and freaking like take out, $75,000 a year worth of loans and freaking party for 4 years. Like that's what you have to do. And like, that's totally not what you have to do.
Yeah. The messaging changes. We could spend countless
Well,
hours.
let's give some takeaways. So you're in the middle of this process. So so you're right now, what does your process look like?
My process looks like this. We are exploring schools and visiting schools and looking, and I think what I'll do when we get through with that and we narrow it down to however, 4 or 5 we may apply to, I'll probably, to bring it back to I'll probably put financial projections together for her on them and have her look at them and say, okay, this is what these probably are going to look like. So, over a 10-year span with the loans you'd have, right? And what your financial outlook would be. But then from there, it's opening the door to the other opportunities. And maybe we put financial projections to them too, and then say, okay, do you feel confident enough that you're going to see this through the end, like I said, in that area of study, so that you'll be around this for a salary range when you get out. Now,
and it's okay to make a mistake.
Right. And you can always go back to school for something else.
And the chances of you making a mistake are high.
Yeah. You can always go, like if you get out and you're in the workforce and you're like, I don't love it. Okay. Now you can pay for maybe a master's degree on you can do it part-time, not take out another loan, whatever. And then you want to change, whatever. It's not the end of the world, but it's just, I think it's really important that they see the financial implication of the decision and take some ownership for the decision. Like, all right, you're owning this, that number there. You're willing to own it. If I said to you, here's what that monthly payment comes out to based on like I said, that's when you put the projections together, they can see like a monthly balance sheet, right? Of it, a monthly profit and loss thing. So now it's like, all right, if I said starting then, you're going to hand over that check. How do you feel about that?
Right. Or what if you make it 2 years through your pre-med at this expensive private school, and then you decide you want to be a school teacher?
What's the pivot plan?
What's the how much of a disaster could that be?
Right. Or what? Yeah. Right. Or what's the pivot? Like,
or do you do pre-med at a public school?
Right.
State school closer to home.
Yep.
And that way, at least you're not accumulating that crazy debt. So that if you do pivot and decide you just want to become a social worker,
I think the best advice,
you're not screwed.
Yeah, and the best advice we can give for that is where our parents might have said, "You got to go to college." You need to. My mom will do that to my kids all the time. They have to go. I'm like, and in front of them, I will be like, "Mom, I want to empower you as the grandparent.
Right.
I want you to have power but understand that." That message is not what they're going to hear from me. So you can keep saying it, but they're going to hear something different from me. So why don't we get on the same page with why the message is different than when we were kids? School can be a great asset. I'm not discouraging it, but the route and how you get there might be a little different. So I think it involves more of a discussion of the options that are out there, a realistic look of what that looks like financially long-term, and giving your kids power and comfort in the fact that this is not a race.
Right. Yeah.
Slow down. Like but it doesn't mean you sit on your ass.
Well,
This is not a race. Doesn't mean you can just chill at home for a couple of years. No, if you're quote unquote figuring it out, then you are figuring it out like in a field, actively making effort to like learn an industry and see if that's a lane you want to go.
If you're going to make a mistake too, you want to make sure that it's not going to be a mistake that sets you back.
Yeah,
in the future, because I think the chances of them making a mistake are pretty high.
of course.
So because both you and I made not mistakes is the wrong way.
We pivoted.
Yeah. So.
Good stuff.
So good luck with that.
Thank you,
Mr. LaFauci.
I will let in a future podcast. I'll let you know how it works out.
Yeah, I mean,
at least what the decision is.
I don't know
when I come in wearing
exactly
not the blood, or maybe it'll be the hat because I'll wear the Blood Force Business shirt. When I'm wearing the first time you see the collegiate hat on me, you'll know that we have committed.
One of the things I didn't talk about this, which I should have, and I'll wrap up with this, is when I was coaching, a big part of the programs was, okay, we want to get kids into college, to play for college programs. But as I think our programs did a good job of, it was all about best fit versus best school. And I think that's what you have to do as a father, is help them understand what the best fit is, not necessarily like get all A's and go to, an Ivy League school. Like that might not be for that person. Go to a big school or go to a small school. Go to a city school, go to a rural school, go to a school away from home, go to a school close to home.
Right.
Like that decision is still not made well enough. Thinking about all those factors.
Right.
Best fit.
Yeah.
A lot of it is just go to the best school possible.
Right.
The school where I've got the most earning opportunity, or where the program is, or the most beautiful campus, right? And not thinking about best fit for the person.
And 90% of the schools out there, the school name does not get you. Unless it's a Brown or Harvard or Yale. So,
no, it's it's basically it's like Harvard, and that's almost it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like,
it doesn't. It really opens some doors for you, but not. Yeah, it doesn't do the thing that you think it's going to do.
But there's so many factors, and that's where you and your son or daughter have to work through them and be like, can you handle being this far away from home? Can you handle being especially come from a small town, can you handle being a number in a school where there's 60,000 kids?
Right.
Can you handle being in a really small school? You know what I mean? Like all these different factors. Like, do you need the extra attention from professors? Like these are the things that people don't think through enough. I don't think, and like in my area, it was sports. It was like, can you go to the school and maybe not play?
Right.
Like what are the consequences if you don't play?
Right.
Because that happened to me.
Yeah.
It was like I didn't play and I was freaking miserable because I didn't think it through. So it's like, and then we had that all the time. You see it with the transfer portal and all the shit that's going on at school right now. It's like, what if the coach quits? Or what if the team doesn't do well? Or what if you don't play? Like,
all
these
sport conversation. We're gonna do a whole podcast on that one.
Yeah. But I mean, like,
absolutely.
But it works into it where it's just best fit.
Right.
Best fit. Like, what can you, would you be okay going and becoming an electrician?
Right.
What are the options besides college? But what's the best fit for the kid? And the kid is not developed, so the best fit is going to maybe change. But, like, that's the thought process that has to go into it. Like, where will I be my best self? What environment will I be my best? And you can at least narrow it down. You can figure out, in some instances, what you know for sure. Like, there's no way I could go that far away from home. I need to be close to mom and dad. Well, then that narrows it down.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's a good starting point. Big school, small school, city, rural, like all these things are, it'd be cool to go to school in the city. Well, that's, we're going to look for city schools instead of going out to UMass Amherst, or some of these places where you're in the middle of nowhere, So I wanted to add that in, but.
Good stuff. Ready to wrap?
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
Have the conversation with your kids. Walk them through, because the landscape is changing and evolving quickly.
It depends.
It does depend.
It depends.
I like best fit.
Best fit.
I'm Brian LaFauci.
Patrick Marino.
Till next time.
Thank you.